Back to my channel. Thank you all for your comments. As I said, I really am going to do a comments video at some point. It's just, as I said, I've still got some articles to get through first, but I really would like to do a comments video at some point because some of the comments are really interesting, and I'd like to take time to go through them properly. But I've just got a few more articles to go through though before I can do that. So one other article, which is a very brief article that I came across, is on Insight. It's called Insights on Software Development and Talent: How Neurodiversity Can Help Your Business. And it's can't actually read my own handwriting. It's ridiculous. Can't actually read my own handwriting. Where is it from? I can't read my own handwriting there. Okay, I can't remember where I took this one from, but that's the heading of the article. How neurodiversity can help your business. Okay. So it says, within human resources, savvy businesses are moving towards greater diversity among staff, and since the economic downturn, this is seen as a growth strategy. And under neurodiversity is included autism, dyslexia, ADHD, brains that work differently from most. It's interesting that they talk about neurodiversity, whereas, as you know, the neurodiversity movement is very, very fixated on semantics and the meaning of things, and they can get quite away if terms are misused. Because technically speaking, according to their own language, everyone is neurodiverse. There's no such thing as, so they would say that actually they're really talking about neurodivergence, which is people whose brains are different from the norm. They make a distinction between neurodivergence and neurodiversity, and some of them could get quite irate if you get the terms mixed up. It's like, way over my head, I just don't get how you can get so fixated on language in that way. Like, seriously, bigger fish to fry and all that. But yes, they do. They can get quite fixated on language. So it's just quite interesting that they talk here about neurodiverse people when they should really be talking about neurodivergent people if they're being politically correct according to the NDM. But there we go. And it's also interesting, as you can see, that they've lumped together many, many diverse conditions. I mean, dyslexia is miles away from autism in terms of how it affects people, but they lump them all together into this kind of, this kind of tribal group. Brains work differently from most. Again, that actually comes across to me as kind of psychobabble to some extent, because, obviously, if you have a condition such as autism, it is kind of, you obviously, you experience the world differently, and you might have, might go about life in a slightly different way to most people, and experience difficulties, in some cases very significant difficulties and disabilities and handicaps and things like that. Sometimes even quite a lot of distress can be caused. But we don't really know that much about the brain, and obviously we can deduce from these behaviours that there is something going on a neurological level. But we don't, as I say, we don't really know much about the brain, and it's kind of probably very unlikely that the whole brain is different. That is a very sweeping, unscientific thing to say in the face of such limited evidence. It's more like, if you think about it, the brain is really, really complex. Really complex. What's more likely is that a tiny, weeny little part of the brain, somewhere in the vast chemistry of the brain, is ever so slightly out of whack, has kind of a developmental anomaly, but that tiny little deviation can cause massive effects further downstream. I tend to think of it a bit like a butterfly effect, like where where a butterfly flaps its wings, isn't it, in one part of the world, it can cause a tornado in another part of the world. Is that right? I think that's what it was, wasn't it? Something like that. So it's like a tiny little. You might think that's really really minor, and yet it can have massive repercussions because it's like, and it can also happen in really random ways as well. It's not always clear cut how it's going to develop, and I actually imagine autism and developmental conditions in general to be similar to that. Like a really small, tiny little aberration somewhere in development can cause massive ripple effects further downstream, and as the child gets older, those ripples can become bigger and bigger and bigger, and it might only take a really small deviation somewhere in the brain. I don't think the whole brain is different. I think that's kind of like, I don't know, we don't have enough evidence to show that. I mean, obviously if evidence comes along to show that, then great, we go along with it, but there isn't any evidence to show that autistic brains are different to neurotypical brains in a holistic way. There's just no evidence to show that. So in actual fact, this kind of like obsession with neuro this and neuro that, it's basically neuroreductionism. And it's also quite ironic because, well, it actually results in a lot of stereotypes for starters, but it's ironic because those in the neurodiversity movement claim to be against the medical model and all pro-social model, and yet they use medical language, but they use like neuro this and neuro that, but they use medical language in a really unscientific, reductionist way, when we really do not know yet what is going on in the brain of autistic people, and also aside from the fact that autism is almost certainly not one thing, but actually describes many, many, many different conditions, and that tiny little initial impact in the brain could occur in different areas in these different conditions and could have random effects downstream that can then result in different types of autism. And obviously some of the ripples might be bigger than others, and a whole range of different factors might be involved though. So this obsession with kind of splitting people off into tribes I would say is actually quite reductionistic, and actually just results in a lot of stereotypes and almost treating autistics as though they belong to some separate species or something, which I find quite offensive. I just wish people would understand that autism can be a really serious disability, irrespective of what causes it, that it can be a really serious disability and needing assistance, and that autistic people are people first and foremost, that you can't, that basically the difficulties they experience is caused by their autism, but their autism itself doesn't like define their whole being. There's no such thing as like you can't reduce autistic people to stereotypes is what I'm trying to say. The most offensive one for me, by the way, is when they come out of a roll call with strengths that autistic people are supposed to have. If you did that in any other minority group in a population, there'd be an absolute outcry, but it seems perfectly acceptable to do that with autism. And not just autism, but other neurological, in inverted commas, neurological conditions. And I find that very offensive. Particularly when even well-meaning people, when I talk about my good stuff, things I'm good at and stuff, then I say, oh, a lot of autistic people are very, I don't know, whatever trait it was, are very honest and very focused, and I'd say a lot of autistic people are like that, and I'm like thinking, no. What I've just said is kind of part of me, and it's not part of my autism. But yeah, it pisses me off. It's like, seriously, like you wouldn't do that to any other person in the population. You wouldn't start telling a woman I know some sexist people do. Like some sexist people love to tell women how the way they behave is because of their ovaries or something in so many words. But I mean, it's offensive. People are people. Like, it's downright offensive to reduce someone to like a category. But that takes another video. Anyway, I'm going off on one. So yeah, this article is a roll call of stereotypes. Autistic people are often well, not just autistic people, it's lumping autism, dyslexia and ADHD and all these other very dissimilar conditions together. Obviously, they can have trait overlap, but they are different conditions. So saying that people with these conditions are often highly intelligent and capable. Let me know what problems you can see with that. Highly intelligent and capable are often highly intelligent and capable. That's what is called positive stereotyping, and it is still offensive and it's still ableist. Because if you did get say if you took another minority group, I don't know, an ethnic minority, okay, and you said about that ethnic minority that as a group they're highly intelligent and capable, that would still be racist, okay, because it doesn't matter if you're framing it in positive language or negative language. Taking a whole group of people and saying that they're all like, or actually it doesn't say all like this, but it says that often. Okay, fair enough, but still, you're still generalising in the word often about a whole group of people. That is disgusting, because that's just like, yeah. Need I say more? I mean, you could tell it's disgusting, can't you? I mean, it shouldn't even be allowed. It's discriminatory, it's offensive, it's disgusting. And it's also putting an excellent workers who often excel in other areas. And now we've got the long roll call of positive stereotyping. It wouldn't be acceptable in any other minority group. If this happened in any other minority group, it'd been an absolute outcry. I'm surprised it's even allowed. But there we go. Often excel in other areas. Attention to detail. Organisational skills. Identifying root cause of problems. People on the spectrum tend to see patterns in data that others cannot. Neurodiverse workers tend to show up to work more consistently. I would have actually thought it's the opposite. If you have a neurological condition, the likelihood is you're going to have more time off work because of burnout, extreme stress, extreme anxiety. Lots of other things could actually make it more likely for you not to turn up on work on time, get in all sorts of trouble and end up on benefits. As indeed many autistic people cannot maintain employment for those reasons I've just listed. So I do not know where they get this idea that neurodiverse workers, what they really mean is, according to NDM language, neurodivergent workers tend to show up to work more consistently. I don't know where they get that from. But anyway, that roll call of positive stereotypes, I really struggle with organisational skills, and lots of autistic people do. And ADHD is defined by executive dysfunction. So people with ADHD are going to really struggle with organisation. It's an absolute joke, this roll call. It doesn't add up. It also says they have reduced stress. Am I seeing right? Often able to block out external inputs and focus on work. What? I mean, I'm bombarded by sensory stuff. I can't block a shit out. Most autistic people have extreme sensory difficulties. What the heck? Anyway, even under high pressure conditions, I'd be having a meltdown. So I do not know what neurodiverse person they're talking about here, but it isn't me. If you ask me, they're talking about people who actually do not have a condition, like what I call new age. These kind of like rather quirky people who are basically just don't have a condition. Because if you could do all of that, you obviously are not impaired, are you? So yeah, it's just crazy. It's just weird. Let me know what you think anyway. And this is another example of how capitalist businesses are exploiting the worst of the neurodiversity movement for their own economic gain, and creating a raft of stereotypes which actually are harming people with these conditions, stigmatising them, and resulting in unfair expectations that many of them just cannot meet, precisely because they do not have that list of traits that was just outlined, or if they do have them, they have far greater difficulties, which mean they can't actually utilise any of those. Okay, so thank you for watching.